Before I tell this story, I'd like to begin by saying this happened a decade ago, and I don't at all condone any of my actions from this story. You know, I didn't have the best decision-making skills at age 11 to 12. Please don't start physical fights with people. Okay, thanks. When I was in middle school, I was very protective of my sketchbook and didn't like it when anyone other than my friends looked through it. I think at the time I wasn't very confident in my art, and I also didn't like it when people watched me draw, so I'd always cover my sketchbook whenever I drew in it at school. Of course, this seemed to only make people more curious. One day, in my 7th grade art class, a boy wanted to look in my sketchbook, and even after I'd said no, he took it from me anyway. I freaked out and started grabbing at it in a panic, and I guess he thought that was amusing, so he started tossing it to his friends, who tossed it amongst each other, and it quickly turned into a game of monkey in the middle. I eventually caught up to one of the boys, let's call him George, and in a fleeting moment of anger and panic, I kicked him in the shin as hard as I could. He fell to the floor writhing in pain, but I got my sketchbook back, so that was of no concern to me. However, the next day, when I got to school, it turned out George now had a large bruise on his shin, and in retaliation, he decided to spread a rumor about me. He told everyone that I drew porn. Emily draws porn. Why else would she be hiding her sketchbook all the time? I saw it, and she gave me this bruise. 12-year-old me was horrified, and although at first I tried to ignore the rumor, George and his friends would frequently taunt me in class and outside of class, and it had even gotten to the point where even 8th graders who I didn't know would come up to me and ask me to draw them porn. One time, one of my classmates asked me if I could draw a girl's head for him to help him get started on a picture, and I happily obliged. But the next day, I learned that he'd added a crudely drawn naked body right underneath it and told everyone that I had done it. I felt so betrayed. One of George's friends, let's call him Jerry, had a locker right next to mine, and ever since the porn rumor took off, every afternoon after he'd packed his things, he'd go, "Hey Emily, draw me some porn," and then he'd leave. It never failed to ruin my day, and I cried, a lot. One day, I came home crying to my 2 older brothers and told them about my dilemma, and they responded with, "Why don't you just beat them up?"
You're right! That's a great idea! Why didn't I think of that sooner?
It was not a great idea. So the next day, I patiently waited for Jerry at my locker. As always, he packed his things, turned to me, and said, "Hey Emily, draw me some porn." And as soon as the words had left his mouth, I slammed his head against his locker. I started attacking him in the middle of the hallway, and his friends had to run over and form a ring around him so I couldn't reach him. After that day, he stopped bothering me and actually went out of his way to avoid me. Anyways, a few days afterwards, my friend Maria and I wanted to go grab some ice cream from this little shop that was near our middle school. This ice cream shop had a cute backyard patio area with some picnic tables for customers who wanted to eat and relax there. We decided to head to the back, and as soon as we got there, we saw a group of boys sitting at one of the tables, which included several of my bullies. And I was pissed. "Hey, Maria?" "Yeah?" "Can you hold my ice cream?" The next memory is almost now a blur to me, but there was a lot of chasing, pulling, kicking, hitting, and yelling. Funny enough, the 2 boys who had nothing to do with my torment didn't need to run because I wasn't targeting them, so they kinda just sat there with their ice cream and watched me chase their friends. Also, for some reason, not a single employee noticed this little Asian girl terrorizing some of their other customers. Come to think of it, there was a surprising lack of adults in every single one of these events. After that whole incident, nobody really brought up the rumor again, at least not to my face. And in case anyone is wondering, I haven't tried to pick a fight with anyone since then, and I get kind of embarrassed when I remember that part of my middle school life. I can guarantee you that if I ever tried to pick a fight with someone now, I would most definitely lose. I wouldn't be able to fight my way out of a paper bag with these noodle arms. I know a lot of my viewers are very young and impressionable and very similar to how I was when I was younger, but if you ever experience a situation like this, please don't do what I chose to do. Be better than me. I could have avoided this entire situation if, instead of kicking George, I just immediately told the art teacher, who was no doubt across the room at her desk unaware of the shenanigans going on. But I mean, it's not like I can go back in time and have a stern talk with my younger self. I actually still have the sketchbook that started this whole mess to begin with, so if you want to see the stuff that was in it, let me know. And in case anyone is wondering, I didn't hold a grudge against George and his friends afterwards, and I don't think they held a grudge against me. In high school, I continued to have classes with them, and although we didn't interact much, we also didn't have a problem with each other either. It was like a weird part of middle school history that we never brought up with each other, and that was perfectly fine with me.